Population interaction. Can you think of any natural habitat on Earth that is inhabited just by a single species? There is no such habitat, and such situation is even inconceivable. For any species, the minimal requirement is one more species on which it can feed. Even a plant species which makes its own food cannot survive alone. It needs microbes to break down the organic matter in soil and return the inorganic nutrients for absorption. And then, how will the plant manage pollination without an animal agent? It is obvious in nature, animal, plants, microbes do not and cannot live in isolation but interact in various ways to form biological community. Even in minimal communities, many interactive linkages exist, although all may not be readily apparent. Interspecific interaction arise from the interaction of population of two different species. They could be beneficial, detrimental, or neutral, neither harm nor benefit to one of the species or both. Assigning plus sign to the beneficial interaction and minus sign to the detrimental and 0 for the neutral interaction. Let us look at the possible outcome of interspecific interaction. Population interaction, species A, species B, and name of the interaction, plus plus mutualism, minus minus competition, plus minus predation, plus minus parasitism, plus 0 commensalism, minus 0 amensalism. Both the species benefit in mutualism and both lose in competition in their interaction with each other. In both parasitism and predation, only one species benefit, parasite and predator respectively, and the interaction is detrimental to other species, host and prey respectively. The interaction whether one species is benefited and the other neither benefited nor harmed is called commensalism. In amensalism, on the other hand, one species is harmed whereas the other is unaffected. Predation, parasitism, and commensalism share a common characters. The interacting species live closely together. Predation. What would happen to all the energy fixed by autotrophic plant if the community has no animals to eat the plants? You can think of predation as nature's way of transferring to higher trophic levels the energy fixed by plant. When we think of predators and prey, most probably it's tiger and deer that readily come to our mind, but a sparrow eating any seed is no less a predator. Although animal eating plants are categorized separately as herbivorous, they are in a broad ecological context not very different from predators. Besides acting as conduits for energy transfer across trophic levels, predators play another important role. They keep prey population under control, but for the predators, prey species could achieve high population density and cause ecosystem instability. When certain exotic species are introduced into a geographical area, they become invasive and start spreading fast because the invaded land does not have natural predators. The prickly pear cactus introduced in Australia in early 1920 has caused havoc by spreading rapidly into millions of hectares of rangeland. Finally, the invasive cactus was brought under control only after a cactus feeding predator, a moth, from its natural habitat was introduced in the country. Biological control methods adopted in agricultural pests are based on the ability of the predator to regulate prey population. Predators also help in maintaining species diversity in a community by reducing the intensity of competition among the prey species. In the rocky interdial community of American Pacific coast, the starfish pisaster is an important predator. In a field experiment, when all the starfish were removed from the enclosed intertidal area, more than 10 species of invertebrates become extinct within a year because of the interspecific competition. If a predator is too efficient and overexploits its prey, then the prey might become extinct, and following it, the predator will also become extinct for the lack of food. This is the reason why predator nature is prudent. Prey species have evolved various defenses to lessen the impact of predation. Some species of insects and frog are cryptically colored with camouflage to avoid being detected easily by predator. Some are poisonous and therefore avoided by the predators. The monarch butterfly is highly distasteful to the predator bird because of the special chemical present in the body. Interestingly, the butterfly acquires the chemical during its caterpillar stage by feeding on a poisonous weed. For plants, herbivores are the predators. Nearly 25% of all the insects are known to be phytophagous, feeding on plant sap and other part of animals. The problem is particularly served for plants because, unlike animals, they cannot run away from the predators. Plants therefore have evolved an astonishing variety of morphological and chemical defense against the herbivores. Thorns, acacia, and cactus are most commonly morphological means of defense. Many plants produce and store chemicals that make the herbivores sick when they are eaten, inhibit feeding or digestion, and disruption of reproduction, or even kill it. You must have seen that the weed calotropis is growing in abundant fields. The plant produces highly poisonous carrier glycosidic, and therefore why you never see any cattle or goat browsing on this plant. A wide variety of chemical substance that we extract from the plant on a commercial scale, nicotine, caffeine, quinine, stretchins, opium, etc., are produced by them actually a defense against grazer and browsers. Competition. When Darwin spoke of struggle for existence and survival of the fittest in nature, he was convinced that interspecific competition is a potent force in organic evolution. It is generally believed that competition occurs when closely related species compete for the same resource that are limiting, but this is not entirely true. Firstly, the totally unrelated species could also compete for the same resource. For instance, in some shallow South American lake, visiting flamingos and the resident fishes compete for their common food. The zooplankton in the lake. Secondly, resources need not to be limiting for competition to occur. In interference competition, the feeding efficiency of one species might be reduced due to interfering on inhibitory presence of the other species, even if the resource, food, and space are abundant. Therefore, competition is best defined as a process in which the fitness of one species, measured in terms of its R, the intrinsic rate of increase, is significantly lower in presence of another species. It's relatively easy to demonstrate in laboratory experiment, as Gauss and other experimental ecologists did. When the resources are limited, the competitively superior species will eventually eliminate the other species, but the evidence for such competition exclusion occur in nature is not always conclusive. Strong and persuasive circumstantial evidence does not exist, however, in some cases. The Abington tortoise in Galapagos Island became extinct within a decade after the goats were introduced into the island, apparently due to the greater browsing efficiency of the goats and other goats. Another evidence for the occurrence of competition in nature comes from what is called competitive release. A species whose distribution is restricted to a smaller geographical area because of the presence of competitively superior species is found to expand its distributional area range dramatically when the competition species is experimentally removed. Cornell Elegant Field experiment showed Cornell Elegant Field experiment showed that on rocky sea coast of Scotland, the larger and comparatively superior banaculus dominates the intertidal area and exclude the small banacle cathamulus from the zone. In general, herbivorous and plant appears to be more adversely affected by competition than carnivorous. Gauss's competitive exclusive principle states that two closely related species competing for the same resource cannot coexist indefinitely, and the competition of inferior will eliminate eventually. This may be true if the resources are limiting but not otherwise. More recent studies do not support such gross generalization about competition. While they do not rule out the occurrence of interspecific competition in nature, they point out the species facing competition might evolve mechanisms that promote and coexistence rather than exclusion. One such mechanism is resource partitioning. If two species compete for the same resource, they could avoid competition by choosing, for instance, different times for feeding or different foraging patterns. MacArthur showed that five closely related species of warbler living on the same tree are able to avoid competition and coexist due to behavioral differences and foraging activity. Parasitism. Considering that parasite mode of life ensures free lodging and meals, it's not surprising parasitism have evolved so many taxonomic groups from plants to other higher vertebrates. Many parasites have evolved to be host. They can parasite only on a single species in such a way that both host and parasite tend to co-evolve, and this if the host evolves special mechanism for rejecting or resisting the parasite has to evolve the mechanism to counteract and neutralize them. In order to be successful with the same host species, in accordance with their lifestyle, parasite evolve special adaptations such as loss of necessary sense organ, presence of adhesive organs or suckers to cling to the host, loss of digestive system and high reproductive capacity. The life cycle of parasites are often complex, involving one or two intermediate hosts or vectors to facilitate parasitization or primary host. The human liver fluke or nematode parasite depends on two intermediate hosts, a snail and a fish, to complete the life cycle. The malarial parasite needs a vector mosquito to spread to other hosts. Majority of parasites harm the host and they may reduce the survival growth and reproduction of the host and reduce the population density. They might render the host more vulnerable to predation by making it physically weak. Do you believe that ideal parasites should be able to thrive within the host without harming it? Then why didn't the natural selection lead to evolution of such totally harmless parasites? Parasites that feed on external surface of the host are called ectoparasites. The most familiar example of this group are lice on human and ticks on dogs. Many marine fishes are infected with ectoparasite uh, copepods. Cascata and parasite plant that is commonly found growing in the hedge plants has lost its chlorophyll and leaves in the course of evolution. It derives its nutrition from host plant which it parasite is. The female mosquito is not considered as parasite although it needs blood for reproduction. Can you explain why? In contrast, endoparasites are those that live inside the host of the body at different sites kidney, liver, lungs, red blood cell, etc. The life cycle of endoparasites are more complex because of their extreme specialization. Their morphology and anatomy features are greatly simplified while emphasizing their reproductive potential. Brood parasitism in birds is a fascinating example for parasitism in which the parasitic bird lays its egg in a nest of hosts and lets the host incubate in them. During the course of evolution, the eggs of the parasite bird have evolved to resemble the host egg in size and color to reduce the chances of bird detecting the foreign eggs and ejecting them from the nest. Try to follow the movement of a cuckoo, a quail, and a crow in a neighborhood park during the breeding season, spring to summer, and watch the brood parasitism in action. Commensalism. This is an interaction in which one species benefits and the other is neither harmed nor benefited. An orchid growing in an epiphyte in mango branch and a barnacles growing on the back of the whale benefit whether neither the mango tree nor the whale derive any benefit. The cattle ergot and grazing cattle in close association, a sight you're most likely to catch if you live in farmed rural areas, is a classic example of commensalism. The ergot always forage close to where the cattle are grazing because the cattle, as they move, stir up and flush out insects from the vegetation that otherwise might be difficult for the ergots to find and catch. Another example of commensalism is the interaction between the sea anemone that has stinging tentacles and clownfish that lives among them. The fish gets protection from the predator, which they stay away from the stinging tentacles. The animal does not appear to derive any benefit by hosting the clownfish. Mutualism. The interaction confers a benefit on both interacting species. Lichens represent an intimate mutualistic relationship between fungus and photosynthesizing algae or cyanobacteria. Similarly, the mycorrhiza are an association between fungi and the roots of higher plant. The, the fungi help the plant in absorption of essential nutrients from the soil, while the plant in turn provide fungi with energy yielding carbohydrates. The most spectacular and evolutionary fascinating example of mutualism are found in plant-animal relationship. Plant need the help of the animal for pollinating their flowers and dispersing their seeds. Animal obviously have to be paid fees for the services of the plant expect for them. The plant offers rewards or fees in form of pollen and nectars for the pollinators and juicy and nutritious fruit for the seed dispersers. But the mutually beneficial system would have be a safeguard against the cheaters. For example, the animal that try to steal nectar without adding in pollination. Now you can see why plant-animal interaction often involve co-evolution or mutualistic. That is, the evolution of flower and pollinating species are linked to one another. In many species, fig trees, there is a tight one-to-one relationship with pollinator species of wasp. It means that the fig species can be pollinated only by its partner wasp species and no other species. The female wasp uses the fruit not only as a oviposition egg laying site but uses its developing seed within the fruit for nourishing its larvae. The wasp pollinates the fig inflorescence while in search of suitable egg laying sites. In return for the favor pollination, the fig offers the wasp some of its developing seeds for food for the development of wasp larvae. Orchids show a bewildering diversity of floral patterns, many of which we have evolved to attract the right pollinator insect, that is bees and bumblebees, and ensure guarantee of pollination by it. Not only orchids offer rewards, the Mediterranean orchid Ophrys employs sexual deceit to get pollination done by the species of bee. One petal of the flower bears an uncanny resemblance to the female bee in size and color and markings. The male bee is attracted to what is perceived as a female, that is pseudocopulates with the flower, and during the process is dusted the pollen from the flower. When the same bee pseudocopulates with another flower, it transfers the pollen to it and thus pollinates the flower. Here you can see how co-ovulation operates. If the female bee's color pattern changes evenly slight for any reason during evolution, pollination success will be reduced unless the orchid flower co-evolves to maintain the resemblance of petal to its female bee.